She wasn't famous. She wasn't rich. Just a waitress trying to make it through another long night. But what happened in that diner would change her life, and his, forever. It started with a man no one expected to walk through those doors. A man whose name carried power, money, and the kind of influence that made people stand a little straighter. But that night, none of it mattered. Because when his life was on the line, the only person who stood between him and death was her. What she did next shocked everyone. And what he did after changed her future forever. This is the story of Monique, a woman whose courage exposed something deeper than anyone could have imagined. Where are you watching this from right now? Because by the time this story ends, you'll see why some acts of kindness echo louder than any headline. Monique was the kind of woman people passed by without a second glance. Mid-30s, soft-spoken, always polite, with a tired smile that hid years of struggle. She worked double shifts at a small roadside diner in Atlanta, Georgia. The kind of place where the neon signs flickered, and the regulars came in more for company than coffee. Every night, she wiped tables, filled cups, and listened. She knew everyone's story except her own ever seemed to matter. Rent was late, bills piled high, but she never complained. Because Monique believed that kindness was a currency too few people valued anymore. That night was no different, until it was. The air felt heavier somehow. Rain tapped against the window as thunder rumbled in the distance. Monique was closing up when a black SUV pulled into the parking lot. The engine didn't stop. The headlights stayed on, cutting through the downpour. A man stumbled out, expensive suit soaked, breathing hard, one hand gripping his chest. She ran toward him before she could even think. And in that instant, everything she thought she knew about her quiet life was about to unravel. The man collapsed just inside the diner, gasping for air. Monique didn't know who he was, but she knew what to do. Her training as a nurse before her life fell apart kicked in. She grabbed her phone, called 911, and started CPR. His pulse was weak, fading fast. Rain dripped from his coat as she pressed down on his chest again and again, whispering for him to stay with her. The lights flickered. The storm outside raged. And then, sirens. When paramedics arrived, they took over. Monique stepped back, trembling, her uniform stained with rain and blood. That's when she heard one of them whisper his name. A billionaire. A man whose face was all over the news. The kind of man people said was untouchable. And yet, here he was, alive because of her. A few days later, reporters swarmed the diner. Cameras flashed, microphones thrust forward, but Monique wanted none of it. She wasn't looking for fame. She didn't even tell her coworkers who he was. She went back to her shift, refilling cups, wiping counters, pretending her world hadn't changed. But it had. Because somewhere, behind those hospital walls, a powerful man was waking up and asking about her. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and quiet regret. The billionaire, whose name was Charles Whitmore, stared at the ceiling, haunted by the memory of that night. He'd built an empire, but somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten what it meant to feel human. When his assistant told him a waitress had saved his life, something inside him shifted. Days later, Monique got a letter, not an email, not a call, a handwritten letter delivered to the diner. Inside was a simple message: "You saved my life. Now let me change yours." She didn't know what to think. Was it real? Some kind of joke? But as she read it again, a car pulled up outside. The same black SUV. Charles stepped out, no cameras, no press. Just a man in recovery, walking into the diner that had become his second chance. The other waitresses froze, but Monique kept wiping the counter. He thanked her quietly, his voice rough from emotion. He offered her a job, not as a charity, but as a chance. His foundation was looking for someone to help with community outreach. Someone who understood struggle, kindness, and the weight of being unseen. Monique hesitated. She'd been overlooked her whole life, told she wasn't enough. But something about the way he said it made her believe, maybe, just maybe, this was meant for her. Before we go further, take a second to subscribe if stories like this move you. It helps more people see messages that truly matter. The job wasn't easy. For months, Monique worked tirelessly, helping underprivileged families, organizing food drives, and standing in rooms where her voice finally mattered. Charles often watched quietly, realizing that the woman who saved his life was now saving others. But not everyone was happy about it. Some people whispered, "Why her? A black waitress from nowhere?" The comments, the looks, the quiet disrespect, it all returned like shadows she thought she'd left behind. But Monique didn't let it break her. She carried the same strength that kept a dying man alive that night. Only this time, she was fighting for something bigger: dignity, equality, and the belief that worth isn't written in skin or salary. Then came the gala. A night meant to celebrate Charles's recovery and the Foundation's success. Monique had worked for weeks preparing every detail. She stayed behind the scenes, as always. But when the guest speaker fell ill last minute, Charles turned to her. "You should speak," he said. She froze. Cameras, donors, politicians, it wasn't her world. Yet somehow, she found herself on stage, heart pounding, facing hundreds of faces that once would have looked right through her. She spoke softly at first, about the night in the diner, about choices, about how no act of kindness is too small. The room fell silent. People listened. Really listened. And when she finished, they stood, applauding a woman who once thought she'd never be seen. From that night on, Monique wasn't just the waitress who saved a billionaire's life. She became a voice, one that reminded people that humanity is still alive, even in the places we least expect it. She never asked for recognition, but her story spread far beyond that diner. Scholarships were named after her. Programs launched in her honor. Yet what mattered most to her wasn't the praise, it was the young girls who wrote letters saying, "Because of you, I know I matter too." Monique's life didn't change because she saved a billionaire. It changed because she refused to let the world's cruelty harden her heart. And maybe that's the truth we keep forgetting: it's not power or money that saves us, it's compassion. The kind that comes from ordinary people doing extraordinary things. She went back to that diner one last time, years later, now quiet and empty. She sat at the counter, smiled softly, and whispered to herself, it was all worth it. So the question is, how many more Moniques are out there, unseen, unheard, still believing kindness can change the world? Maybe one of them is you.